Here it is, the new project. 2001 Ram 3500. It was a Ram 3500. Now it's a frame with an engine and a scrap box with a bunch of scrap in that box. But this is going to be the starting point for building my dream truck. I have a second gen. It's a 2000 2500 two-wheel drive, but it is a 5-speed. And I bought that truck from the original owner, 80-year-old man, and I just absolutely fell in love with the truck itself. I told myself to keep it forever, but it was always in the back of my mind that if I was ever going to keep a dream truck, it was going to be a 4x4 long box dually truck that I can still work with. But I adore this whole platform. It is far from the most comfortable thing in the world, but there's just something about the purity of this drivetrain that it's just infectious to me. It puts a smile on my face every time I drive the truck. And this is going to be my starting point, is restoring this Canadian truck. It's spent every single winter of its life in Canada, and considering that it's actually in very good shape from a frame standpoint, they rot out really badly, really badly. And this is honestly about as good as you're really gonna get. And I'm gonna strip this entire truck down to the very bare frame and build it back up exactly how I want it. And this is gonna be a truck that I one day pass on to my own kids, because I'll just never sell this, despite whatever I might want to own in the future. I just adore this platform. So this is going to be a nut and bolt, just do the truck correctly. It's going to take me a very long time, but I so regret not documenting the process of building my yellow car that I'm going to make sure I do this truck start to finish. And I think it should make for a reasonably entertaining series, or it's just going to deter every single one of you from how stupid this project really is, because I fully realize it would be a lot easier just to go out and buy a running, driving 4x4 long box dually. But what's the fun in that? Yeah, so I think, at least. Let's get started.
I bought the truck from a younger guy that was dealing it for a few months before he tore it apart. He planned on cab swapping the truck, and the project just kind of ended up on the back burner, and now it's in my hands. The body and cab rust-wise was pretty much how that rear door looked a second ago, hence the cab swap, and I have everything that I needed from when he tore it apart. Every nut, bolt, piece of the truck that you don't see in the video, but most of it is borderline unusable, aside from maybe electronics. I've only ever worked on older, very small BMWs, so there's going to be quite a bit of equipment needed to get this truck apart and reassembled properly. You'll probably notice right away in this clip there's no room for a hoist. So my next option was to run over to Princess Auto, or for my US viewers, that's basically our Harbor Freight. And they happened to have on sale a gantry crane. It was just a smaller 1-ton unit, but that was going to be just fine to remove the cab, box, drivetrain, all the stuff that my small little engine hoist had no chance of holding up.
Oh. Sick. Okay. Wow.
After all, it ended up being my little engine crane that was the first tool that we used to get this truck apart. I picked up the gantry, and also the sandblasters were on sale while I was at it, so we're going to retrofit that to actually work, and upgraded to a 4-ton floor jack, seeing as mine was already on the way out from lifting this little white BMW. I'm not going to bore you with how to assemble a gantry, so here's a clip of me very foolishly lifting it all by myself.
Okay. Ooh, it's much taller than I thought it would be. Okay. wasn't so bad.
And with the gantry up on its own feet and rolling around, I was ready to tear into this truck.
First order, getting this bed off. These crossbars need to come out for fifth wheel plate. It's going great.
Up until this point, I've never needed a set of acetylene torches, but I'm quickly realizing that's gonna change with this truck. So I'm making do with what I've got. And it does work, it eats a lot of time. I successfully broke every single bolt holding the fifth wheel blade on, and pretty much likewise for all the bed bolts, so I broke out the bolt extractor. Of all 8 or 10 bed bolts in this truck, I snapped every single one except for 2. This was one of the ones that actually backed out, so I'm gonna have to source some new hardware when I remount the bed. I made sure to salvage as many parts as I could, because everything really adds up when you're doing a truck this way. So every bit of trim, the wheel liners, taillights, anything that looked like it could be salvageable down the road, I kept before I scrapped the bed.
I know myself and how much it helps to have a bit of a vision up, especially when it's -10 inside my shop because it's not insulated. So here's the goal, boys. I think we're almost there. Who am I kidding? This is definitely a too motivational picture job. All right. We'll see how I do when this truck's all finished. Something like this. Yeah.
I did a little test lift after work one night just to see if it would actually lift the bed, and it did, but then I realized I had nowhere to put the bed if I did get it up in the air, so I resumed the following evening after I emptied the shop. Now, I made just about every stupid mistake in the book here. Unlevel ground, without the gantry locked at a high setting, yanking on it without watching the other side. And, well, that's the aftermath. As embarrassing as that is, it was such a stupid mistake. There was already a lot of weight in the bed, and I just did everything you should do with one of these. So I restrapped this correctly on somewhat more level ground and reattempted.
I don't know how I thought that was gonna go, but not like that.
By the way, if you're gonna lift one of these boxes off a truck like this, don't strap it the way that I have. I know full well this is a scrap box and I just don't care what happens to it. Clearly based off the previous clip. So use the fifth wheel plates, or better than anything, use a hoist if you're gonna get a box off one of these trucks. With all that chaos over with, I went back to trying to remove these fifth wheel plates. I got them removed from the chassis pickup points, but all the other bolts were completely seized, actually mounting them to the bed itself. So I had to grind down the heads of every single bolt holding these fifth wheel plates in and extract them once they were completely stripped and removed. After stripping and breaking so many bolts, I decided to turn my attention to the drivetrain where there was some more bolts to strip and break. But with the exception of some really annoying exhaust bolts, everything was so soaked in oil from this leaking engine that it was a breeze taking everything apart. There was some DIY goodness here with only 2 of the 4 bolts holding the turbo to the manifold. So, I'm really surprised this wasn't leaking more than it was. It was pretty wild how hollowed out all the mounting holes were for the turbo downpipe. I'm definitely gonna have to source a new one. Yeah, that's about what I thought. Every single part that I planned on keeping, including the ones that I didn't, I labeled and as descriptively as possible, because I know that coming back to this truck in a year or two, things are going to be very confusing. So even on the old lines, I labeled every single end, because I've never taken one of these trucks apart like this before, so that at least I can reference old parts in the future. At first glance, this frame looks rough, but it's actually just really dirty and really scaly. You can see this one spot that I used my new tool that I love so much called the needler. It's basically call it a pneumatic hammer with a bunch of needles on the end, and it excels at removing rust scale. So it essentially punches the metal 1,000 times a minute and removes all the scale and rust from a majority. It doesn't remove the surface, but you'll see here in just a second the before and after. It is a tremendous first step before the sandblasting we're going to do on this frame, just to remove all of the 20 years of buildup on top of this frame. After I removed this well-aged ratchet strap holding the gas tank up, which I'm pretty sure is every old truck special, it was ready to come down. I've been working away at this truck in 3 or 4 hour periods, almost every night after work. Hence my constant change of wardrobe and me jumping around this truck. I just keep doing whatever I kind of feel like doing that night until this whole frame is stripped. The whole teardown just consisted of removing every part as properly as I could if it didn't break, and labeling every single thing so that when I came back to this for the actual rebuild stage, there would be as little confusion as possible, despite there guaranteed to still be some.
There's a ground that I didn't see. Make sure that we label everything. Ground to block. That is the guts of a 24 valve Cummins VP44 truck. At least the engine.
In the case of some lines, they were so much of a nightmare to remove that I just decided to cut them because I knew full well there's no way I'm putting these back on the truck. So I labeled them and off they came.
Years from now, I barely pulled on this, barely touched it. Clean snap, and if we wiggle anymore,
And with all of that teardown complete, this engine was finally ready to come out. One of the last pieces before I take this frame off to get power washed before sandblasting. And with Quinn's help after work one night, we hooked up the scrap box to the rodeo, put her to work to get this thing out of here to make some more room for this truck. And there you have it. That is the truck fully stripped, aside from a few lines that I'm leaving on for the next step, which is going to be hauling the truck down to my shop and power washing the whole frame before it's all needled, sandblasted, and painted. But for that, you have to wait for the next video, which is going to be a long one because this is a lot of work to go. But I cannot wait to move on to the next step. With Shelby very eager and freezing to go home despite her little heater, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, guys.